Haven't you heard? A queen is on the rise. Wear a mini hat so she can open up your eyes. Join the convo, the podcast is lit. Cop a pen or two to spice up your fit, yeah. She's a producer, you can vibe to a beat. She do the most, but she ain't come to do the least. Whether it's the combo or the music you want, find it all here at TiTiTalks.com. Come and stimulate your mind with TiTi Talks. Promise you'll never fall behind with TiTi Talks. The knowledge you're seeking you can find with TiTiTalks.com. So come on and get with TiTi Talks, yeah.
Peace, family. It's your girl TiTi from TiTi Talks. I'm in the A, and I'm so excited. I got to link up with Sister Samara Rivers. She is the founder of the Black Bourbon Society. And if you know me, you know I love me some whiskey, bourbon in particular. And I'm glad because we're going to talk whiskey. A lot of my listeners, they're always asking me questions about whiskey like I'm an expert. I'm not. But I'm an enthusiast and I love it. I love the vision of everything that you're doing with the Black Bourbon Society. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yes, and welcome home.
Yes, we're here. She was gracious enough to open up her space to record TiTi Talks episode here. And we're going to talk whiskey. It's going to be Whiskey 101. We're going to do a little tasting. We're going to talk about her vision. We're going to talk about spirits of all kinds.
Yes.
It's going to be fabulous. So make sure y'all just roll with us, sit back, get you a cup of something that you really enjoy yourself, and really enjoy this show because we're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good time. For sure. So tell the people who you are.
I'm Samara, and I started Black Bourbon Society about 3 years ago. I was doing some work in California with a brand. I kind of doing some subcontracting work on the event planning side, helping them to produce some events that were spirits related. And these events were dope, you know, and I wanted to invite my friends. And so I asked one of the women I was working with, I said, you know, who's invited to these events? And she didn't have time. She had just moved to the Bay Area and just kind of handed me like her proprietary information from her company that was like their marketing directives, who these amazing experiences were geared towards. And I didn't see myself in the document. And the only reference they had towards African Americans was more of like a hip hop urban demographic, not anyone who I was 35 at the time, married with 2 small children, but I still like to get dressed up, enjoy fine things, and, you know, enjoy these wonderful experiences that I was creating. And so I challenged the industry and I said, you know what, you're missing out on a big market. Like, you're going for, like, yes, the urban demographic is very valuable. That's the gateway to the spirits industry, but you're missing out on all these educated African-American professionals who have discretionary income and who like fine things.
Hello.
And my exact pitch to them was, why do you think we wear Gucci and Louis Vuitton and drink cheap liquor?
It's not happening.
And they didn't have a response. And they were just like, oh, we never thought about it that way.
Of course they didn't.
So I started Black Bourbon Society. And 3.5 years later, we've got 12,000 members from across the country. We've got our private select with Maker's Mark. We've done activations all over the country, you know, working with all of the brands. And so it's just, you know, it really showed that there was a need to welcome this new demographic. We've created a new demographic in the spirit space.
Absolutely. And I'm a proud card-carrying member of the Black Bourbon Society. I got my card. Y'all are not going to catch me slipping in these streets. There's a whole game that goes along with it.
Oh, yeah.
We're not
going to get your black card snatched.
Yes. I'm not going to be snatched. Y'all not going to catch me slipping out here. But I like it because, A, I like nice things.
Yes.
B, I love whiskey and I love spirits in general. There's very few spirits that I don't like. Whiskey just happens to be my favorite.
Right.
And I also like, I like quality. I like quality and I like communalism and I like people coming together. And some of my best memories have been sipping whiskey with friends, at parties, at events, at weddings, at funerals, at, you know, all kinds of very deep and powerful spaces in my life. And so I was like, Black Bourbon Society, that seems cool. You know what I'm saying? And I'm on Facebook all the time and I joined the group. I love the information. I still consider myself to be a whiskey newbie. But it's wonderful to be there with people who are more experienced than me in whiskey, less experienced than me in whiskey, and just having conversations. People are asking about, what are some good recommendations? You're finding out cool things to drink. I hadn't had, so many, you don't even know how many whiskeys and bourbons exist until you get into a space where you're starting to get all this information. So I just appreciate it because I have added more fine spirits to my cabinet since joining BBS than I have at any time before. So that's why I wanted to have Sister Samara come on so that she could talk about everything that's going on. And we're going to get into a little bit about what whiskey is, because I want everybody to feel included into this conversation. Right. And sometimes when you start talking about kind of mash bills and all kinds of things like that, it flies over a lot of people's heads who aren't necessarily privy to a lot of that information. So I kind of just want to get everybody up to speed so that, it's all about being inclusive. Right. BBS has always been about being inclusive from the beginning. And, one of the main things in the group is to keep it respectful, know that people are coming in from different spaces. We're not talking negative about anybody. And if you are, it gets shut down. There's none of that going on. So talk a little bit before we even get into that, just about yourself, who you are, your background. And
so I'm a mom. I have a 6-year-old little boy. I have a 9-year-old little girl. I am from Los Angeles. I'm divorced, getting married again. Mm-hmm. I'm just a fighter. I'm someone who has. I started off with an art history background. I went to FAMU, of course, Rattlers. So I went to FAM right after, and then I got my master's degree over at Florida State in art history. Mm-hmm. And I moved to San Francisco after graduation and kind of worked tried to live a regular life, So I worked at museums and I curated exhibitions. I then switched over from curating art shows to going more into the foundation side and doing a lot of the development and fundraising for nonprofit arts organization. Then I, again, got married, had children, and somewhere in that switch moved over into fundraising for nonprofit health organizations. And I worked for the American Diabetes Association. I worked for the MS Society, Multiple Sclerosis Society. And then in my last position in a corporate space environment, I was a regional director for team and training with Leukemia Lymphoma Society. Okay. Wow. And so that kind of leads you right up to BBS. When I was laid off, I thought I had my dream job. And I thought I had made it. I had the office with the view in San Francisco and I could see the water. And I was like, oh, I've made it. I'm the director. I'm the boss. And then 6 months later, I got laid off from that position. They completely dismantled that program and restructured how that program was ran. And it kind of set me spiraling. I was devastated. Right. And then I just decided, I said, you know what, I don't want to work this hard for anybody else ever again in my life. Yeah. And I was commuting. I would have to take my kids to 2 different schools, then drive to the train station, park my car, get on the train, go over to San Francisco, then walk half a mile to get to my office just so I can start working. And then do that all and beat the clock by 6 o'clock to pick my kids up from school, then get them ready, then get back on my computer, work another couple of hours.
That make you want to drink whiskey.
It was insanity. Wow. But I was willing to put in that much effort for my dream job. And when I got laid off and was like, oh, you know what? At first I was crushed. Your ego's always crushed. And I was like, but I don't have to do all this running around anymore. And if I am going to do all this running around, if I am going to put 70 hours a week, I know I can be successful if I put in 70 hours a week on myself. Right. And so I never got another job after that. Hello. And so I started, I used my skills. Okay, I was great at fundraising. I knew nonprofit art space. And I had always had a side hustle of planning events. Since college, essentially. I used to do weddings. I used to plan birthday parties, whatever. And so I started this is now my second company because I had a company before my daughter was born, but I started Samara Rivers Fundraising and Events. And I just became a consultant and worked in the nonprofit art space again, but this time as a consultant, doing galas, more of the fundraising aspect of it. I did some private events for Senator Barbara Lee or Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Just kept myself busy and was able to somewhat sustain my lifestyle when I ran into someone in the spirit space who said, I'm new to this area and I need someone who knows how to plan events and help me find locations and venues to put on these events for my company. Can you help me? And so that's how the whole spiral got started. But that's me in a nutshell. I'm a hard worker. Yeah. I'm always going to find a way.
Absolutely.
And just determined to be my best, to do my best and to be my best.
Word. And it's amazing how when spirit like pushes you out of the nest when you're not quite ready, how you'll figure out how to fly real quick.
Yeah.
You will figure it out.
Right.
And so it's amazing how everything from college time, it's like all of your positions, your job, your side hustles have kind of prepared you for this endeavor now.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, that's how our membership program is ran, just like it would for any nonprofit organization. Right. Yes, we plan events. We, have all these different arms that are associated with Black Bourbon Society, like our travel, our yearly conference that we do. It's very much set up like a nonprofit organization, but it's a whiskey club / we do a lot of consulting as well. So
dope. Yeah. And so now we have BBS. There's events that are happening. What's the next event? Is there anything on the books right now?
We've got some stuff. I have not released the public calendar, so everybody's getting it first. Here on TiTi Talks. But we did. We've got our barrel pick with Maker's Mark.
Yes.
It hit 4 cities last year. It hit Chicago, New York, Houston, and it's trickling into Dallas all last year. But it's finally being released here in Atlanta. So our first event is next Saturday for the bottle pickup party.
Yep. Super Bowl weekend, right?
Super Bowl weekend. Saturday before, we'll do private tastings on that. We'll do public tastings on that. Anyone's welcome to come up to Tower up in Doraville and get a tasting and purchase a bottle. We'll sign the bottles on the spot. What else do we have? We've got some smaller local events going on. We've got an event coming up with Old Forester here that we haven't released details on, but that'll be February 13th. The larger events that are coming down the pipeline we've got our exclusive excursion to Louisville that happens the weekend before Derby. And that we take 30 members from across the country. And we create these amazing behind the scenes tours with all of the distilleries.
That sounds amazing.
We'll be at Lux Row Distillers. The master distiller is already scheduled to meet us and do a private tasting and go through the facility. We've got dinner plans at Bardstown Bourbon Company, which has amazing food. And also they're another distillery that's doing some amazing collaboration projects with Copper and King's brandy. So we've got this brandy bourbon blend. Then that Saturday morning, we'll wake up and drive out to Four Roses Distillery and we'll spend the entire day with them. And their master distiller, Brent Elliott, is coming out. We'll have lunch under the gazebo at the distillery and have a full tasting. Some rare whiskeys will be in there as well. And then we're going to get dressed up and go to opening night at Churchill Downs. So we'll get a little bit of
this sounds great
at the Derby feel in that. And I always end that weekend. We call it Brown Derby weekend because it leads up to Derby week. But we always close out that event with a brunch on Sunday that honors the Black jockeys.
Awesome.
And so we have our Black jockey
because that's a little known history in itself.
Oh my God, that's a huge piece of Black history that never gets past the greats: Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman. But the Black history that is found in Kentucky Derby history is pretty awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, and just so folks don't, I can run off on a tangent. So just reel me back.
I want you to be great.
But just so folks know, when the Kentucky Derby first opened up, when Churchill Downs opened up in the late 1800s, African Americans were allowed to race with the other white jockeys. And out of the first 25 races, 13 of them were won by Black jockeys. They were won by African Americans. Isaac, oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. Isaac Murray. I think he won the Derby maybe 2 or 3 times. He started winning when he was only 15.
Wow.
But these were essentially freed slaves who handled the horses and who were working on these plantations. And they got out there and they were able to race and win trophies for their owners. And the only reason why African Americans were pushed out of the sport was because of Jim Crow. And they deemed that African American jockeys were no longer equal and should not compete along with the white jockeys. And that honestly, that pushed us out of the sport for decades, for years. And I mean, we've only had maybe one African American jockey race in the Kentucky Derby ever since. But yeah,
this is important history.
But I
didn't even know.
But that's honor. Yeah, that's why we honor the Black jockeys, because they were there from the very first race.
Wow. See, this is why you need to be a part of BBS, so you can get exposed to this type of history. There's so much that we just don't know. And these tours are amazing. I need to get it together and get on board and get on one of these tours and stop playing.
But they sell out so quick.
I know. Yeah. And I'm always having travel conflicts, but I'm going to have to make that happen. But that's just one of the perks of being a BBS member.
Right.
And talk a little bit more about some of the other perks of BBS membership.
So, we've got, our travel excursion. So we have that one in the spring. We do another one in the summer that's a little bit more bigger. And, we kind of run around downtown Louisville, really focusing on that. But then we also have discounts to our national meetup, which we call Bourbon Boulet. That's in New Orleans for Labor Day weekend. So you get exclusive invitations to events with that. You get firsthand notice about events happening in your city. We have ambassadors across the country who plan exclusive events specifically for our members. And you get discounts on the store, like on your shirts. But really, it's just a way for us to support the mission. And the mission of Black Bourbon Society really is to advocate for diversity and inclusion within the spirits industry. And that was, again, going back to what I saw in this industry, is that we weren't included. And now we've shown and we've proven to this industry that African Americans are valuable, that we have a taste for, have a desire to learn more about their products, and we are actually consumers. Like, we are valuable consumers to this industry, and we deserve
an educated consumer.
Yes,
we know our stuff. And
conscious. I always say conscious.
Absolutely,
consumers.
Conscious consumers for sure.
Yeah,
and speaking of which, as far as like getting information, you also create content around whiskey, and you have she has her own podcast with, she co-hosted with Armand, with her partner Armand, and I enjoy it because I listen to it because like I said, I'm still learning too. So I'm listening. Sometimes if I have access to whatever they're drinking, I'll sip it with the show and see if my tastings match up with,
what's
cool. going on. Yeah, I do that. I'm such a nerd. And but I also do that with whiskey.com with the scotches. I do that with the guy on there too. But anyway, so talk a little bit about your podcast.
So our podcast is Bonded in Bourbon, and it's a whiskey review show from a his and her perspective. So it is my partner Armand Davis and I. We sit down, we review a bottle, and we take it through 5 different categories, like appearance, nosing it, palate, mouthfeel, and the finish. And we basically have created a scoring system, and we get on the air and we compare notes. We do our reviews separately or individually, so we don't influence each other. And literally when we record, we sit down and he says what he thinks, and I say, yeah, no, I didn't taste that. Or,
that happens.
And we just go back and forth. But Armand's palate is more of a Scotch palate. He came to the industry he's been drinking since before he was legal.
Yeah.
But he came to he came to knowing me as a Scotch guy. Mm-hmm. And he prefers Japanese whiskeys.
Gotcha.
He prefers the Macallans, the Balvenies.
Yes.
He loves Scotch and other international whiskeys. So his palate is more like the 80 to 90 proof, very smooth.
Yes.
Subtle peaty notes, like very floral, herbal. He likes that. I'm a bourbon girl through and through.
Yeah.
I like things that are over 100 proof.
Yeah.
Punch you in your throat.
Yeah.
Like give you this whole experience. Mm-hmm. So we do come from two different palates, and we just trade notes on the show, and it works. It's fun.
Cool.
It's fun. Yeah.
Cool. And that I really enjoy that because it lets people know that, you know, sometimes this is why I don't fight with people about what's their favorite or what they like. Everybody's palate is different.
Right.
I don't even mock people who like certain things. You know what I'm saying? Like if that's your thing, I'd be like, I ain't gonna drink it. But if that's what floats your boat and makes you feel good and you have a good time and makes you relax, I'm all for you enjoying it. So, you know, what you want to do is when you get the information, you don't want to become a snob about it. You know, you don't want to become pretentious about it. You want to be able to enjoy it, allow people to enjoy it as they see fit. If you want to drink XYZ, you enjoy it. I love Scotch. I like bourbons. They have very different.
Yeah.
It's a very different experience for both of them. There's a lot of very caramelly smokiness and heat, you know, that comes with the bourbons. And, you know, Scotches have a different kind of sexiness, you know, it's a little lighter, you know. But they both are beautiful and elegant in their own way. And I'm highly fascinated with just the whole science of taking, you know, a grain and then turning it into this very elegant elixir of some sort. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, you know, when you start to, you know, really research and learn more about the industry and how things are made, you get very interested into the science of it all. It's kind of like a little rabbit hole that you go down. Starts off like, ooh, this is yummy. What's this? And then next thing you know, you're up there swirling it, looking at it, and you know,
noticing color,
seeing how it films on the glass. But you know, that's all a part of the journey of enjoying spirits.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a total whiskey geek.
Yeah.
I am a whiskey geek, and again, when we do our tours, when we go to Louisville, like there's no better way to really geek out and understand the science behind whiskey. And when, like, until you're in the distillery and you can see it, and you can see the mash bill cooking, and you can see it being distilled and the layers it goes through, and then you can see it fermenting and all of that stuff, like that, the whole process of how it goes from corn and barley and rye to this is pretty amazing. It
fascinates the hell out of me. Do y'all understand? It's so cool. And I've always loved science anyway. And I remember I had a teacher, a massage teacher, and he would actually brew his own like beers and stuff. And he built like this microbrewery in a closet. He made the most amazing creme brulee beers, and I would just sit there and I would talk to him for hours. I was like, "How the hell did you do that? That's so cool!" So this is why you got to become a member, and you got to, you know, come on these trips so you can see how all of this works. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what whiskey is. So sometimes a lot of people aren't even clear because whiskey is like an umbrella term for a whole bunch of stuff. There's whiskeys, and underneath that umbrella there's bourbons, there's scotches, there's Tennessee whiskeys, there's Irish whiskeys, there's Canadian whiskey, there's Japanese whiskey, there's and so let's just start with, what is whiskey?
Whiskey is essentially, you know, it's a distilled spirit that has been aged in a barrel. It mostly has the base for, you know, and there are different topics, right? There are different subcategories. You can say there's bourbon, there's scotch. And so let's take bourbon, for instance. Bourbon has distinct characteristics, like it's got to have at least 51% corn in its mash bill. And it's got to be, you know, distilled at a certain temperature and then aged in a container. Doesn't have to be a barrel, although it doesn't taste good in a container. It tastes better in a barrel. But it's got to be aged in a barrel for the moment it touches the barrel, it's considered whiskey. or a charred barrel is considered whiskey, or bourbon, but the best bourbons are 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 years. For a Scotch, it's the same thing. Instead of corn not necessarily being the major ingredient in the mash bill, typically it's barley or rye. And that, again, it goes through the same distillation process, and it's aged in barrels for a long period of time.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a cereal grain that is mashed and cooked and distilled in barrel.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what is a mash bill for people that don't know?
So mash bill is like your recipe, mm-hmm. right? So like if most bourbons have some sort of combination, or most whiskeys have a combination of corn, rye, and malted barley. Mm-hmm. And it's just your cereal grains. Some throw in rice. There are some interesting experiments going on where they're putting like quinoa grains and winter wheat. Okay. Maker's Mark has a winter wheat mash bill that they use. Mm-hmm. And it's just your cereal grains that are all kind of mixed together, pounded down, mashed up, and then cooked. And all that sweet flavor starts to come up. And from that mash, they then throw it in with some yeast and some fresh water and let those yeast come in and start to ferment all that grain, and that's what turns it into a beer or like a brew. And then they distill it, and then it turns nice and pretty and white and clear. And then they throw it in the barrel that's also been charred, and that's where it comes up with its colors from the barrel itself.
Delicious. It sounds so much, and I've never been to a distillery before, so I'm over here like, how much I need to get it.
You gotta see it.
I gotta go.
You gotta see it, and it's just like it's the grain, and seeing it pounded, and seeing how much craftsmanship goes into whiskey, and the sourcing of the corn, and the sourcing of their barley, and the sourcing of all their rye, but then seeing how the machinery puts it down, and then how they cook it, but then also looking at those big fermentation tanks, and you can see like a day one. I'm getting really geeky, y'all, so just bear with me.
Yeah, we gonna roll with it.
Like on a day one, like the yeast just starts attacking it, and it's just bubbling, and all this off-gassing is taking place, but they let it sit there maybe 3, sometimes 5 days, and it just starts to develop this crust. Meanwhile, that yeast is down in the bottom of that vat, just pulling out more notes and making more flavor compounds, essentially, before they distill it. And the distilled, either the pot still or the Vendome stills, those, also play into it. It's a whole experience. It's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for adults. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And so, when you start to get all this information, people like to get real excited and just start buying bottles. And you need to kind of relax a little bit and only really buy bottles that you've tasted. So, really a lot of times we're recommending to go to your local bar, see if there's some local whiskey tastings going on in your town. Come to a BBS event,
right?
And taste it, and then figure out what you really like. Then you can go buy it.
Yeah, and that's true. Like, all whiskey is pretty much made under the same process that I just described to you. However, they don't all taste the same.
They do not.
And it depends. There's 5 sources of flavor. So it really breaks down to, again, where are you getting that grain? What is that mash bill? If your mash bill is off, it might be a little too oily from too much corn, or it might be too spicy from too much rye. Like, it's really finding the perfect balance of what you want your mash bill to be before you start doing your fermenting and all of that. But then the water plays a really big role in it, and how fresh, how clear your water is. Of course, bourbon has, a Kentucky bourbon, I should say, has a reputation because of the limestone water that's there in Kentucky. That limestone water also runs through Tennessee, which is why Tennessee has such great whiskey as well, that they're on that limestone shelf as well. So they've got that great source of flavor coming from good water. But then the barrel and the wood that you use for your barrel and the charring level that you put on that barrel, all of those charred compounds and the wood start to soak into that whiskey. So it's all about how it's interacting with that. And then lastly, and which is my favorite part of the whole sourcing of flavor, is the weather. And so if it's in the aging compound, that aging component that goes along with it, and having those barrels sit out there in a rick house for 10 years at the top of the rick house where it gets super hot and humid and then drops down and gets super cold for 10 seasonal cycles, that creates this contrast and expand, with wood and liquid. It just creates this interaction in the whiskey that gives it so much flavor over time. So, yes, there's a bunch of 2-year-old bourbons on the market that taste like 2-year-old bourbon. And then there's 10-year-old bourbons on the market that taste amazing. Yeah. Because again, they've soaked up that sun, they've had this major interaction with the wood, and it just pulls out more notes. The longer it sits, the better it is for me.
Yeah. And it sounds like the actual spirit itself is having an environmental experience.
Oh yeah.
And so you're tasting that in the whiskey.
Yeah, it's all science. It is like it's really just, it's magic. It is. They call it it's alchemy. It's a part of that.
Because it's a true skill. It's a skill that people take years to develop how to actually make it. The title master distiller, even though sometimes it can be tossed around a little bit loosely, but at its core, it's literally that. It's somebody who has trained for a very, very, very long time to be able to create masterpiece, type drinking experiences for people. And a lot of these, and there's a lot of new ones that come in on the market, but a lot of the whiskeys are old. They're hundreds of years old. These mash bills and these recipes are very old, tightly secure.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Even their yeast, even their proprietary yeast for Maker's Mark's, they've had the same proprietary yeast since the 1800s. Yes, and they keep growing it and growing it. But yes, that yeast, the yeast strain, plays a major role.
Listen. This is why you got to get on to the bourbon train. I want you to be great. If it ain't for you, it ain't for you. Yeah. But at least give it a shot if you, because a lot of times, back in the day, you'd always hear, ladies don't drink brown or whatever. And I'm just like, they don't? Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
Says who?
I mean.
But so that's interesting because I think that's what was so empowering for me to get into this industry. It was, I like being unassuming. And I like, breaking the barrier. I like breaking the expectation of what you think I am, and what you think I am. Absolutely. And so, I would, go to a bar and order something neat, and the guy next to me would be like, "Who are you?
What you know about this?
What you know about this?" Right. I love getting that reaction. Yeah. And it's just like, what, you think I can't know more about whiskey? I know everything about whiskey.
Right.
And I love that. I love being,
and it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun just to show yourself, because because it's legit. Because it's like, I'm not doing this just because I want to be mouthing off or whatever. I really love whiskey. Yeah. You don't know that I love it.
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
But so when you are, let's say you have a new selection, talk about your process with how you experience it.
When I pick a whiskey? Well, I think the best way for us to do that is for me to walk you through.
Let's do that.
Okay. So I'm going to do that with the Maker's Mark that we got. So about 2 years ago, we did a barrel pick with Maker's Mark. And we went up to the distillery. Maker's Mark's private select barrel program is unique to all others because it's traditional Maker's Mark, cask strength Maker's Mark that's been aged for 4 to 6 years. But they then do a finishing on the back end of the whiskey production side. They stick staves. So those wooden staves, again, we kind of talked about how the wood being charred or being infrared and just being treated with some sort of heat, they produce a flavor. And so we got a chance to pick our own stave combination and drop it back in that barrel of Maker's Mark cask strength, let it sit for another 9 weeks in a limestone cave. And it's a 60-degree cave because they want to stop the aging process. Again, they just kind of want it to sit and rest and interact more with the wood that we inserted in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we came up with our own label for Black Bourbon Society. We then submitted it to the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, where it got double gold. And was basically, you know, amongst other whiskeys that came up for runner-up for best whiskey in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So huge honor, never been done for Maker's Mark. And we have since kind of we've worked with Maker's Mark to mass produce this bottle. So that was the first, this is the original bottle that was sent to San Francisco World Spirits Competition. And we have had several iterations of these barrels, but you get to taste the judged bottle.
The judged bottle. The double gold sexy bottle. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So
give me your glass.
Okay. I'll bring this here.
I'm just going to give you, it's still a little early in the day.
Just early in the day. Yeah.
Right?
All right.
And so we'll put this back up here.
So you got your brand new. You've tasted this before.
Yes.
I have tasted this before because I have a bottle. I'm not sure if it's the same as that you sent, but
I think you got version 2.
Version 2. Okay.
Yes.
So I have version 2, but I have not had this one. So
yes. Okay. So let's go through it. Well, first we've got to cheers.
Cheers. Sure.
All right. So now nose it.
Nose it.
What do you think? Always open your mouth just a little bit because you want the air to circulate from your nose through your mouth. If you keep your mouth closed, you're going to burn all the nose hairs in your nose.
I don't want to do that.
No. I actually, I didn't talk about this on the podcast a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I have a ton of nose hairs, so I've actually had to get them removed so that I can nose my whiskey better.
It's nice. It's a little caramel, little fresh
There's
apples.
some bright, delicious red apples in here.
Very, very great.
A little bit of maybe like a hint of chocolate or
on the very.
There's something that's really savory that's kind of weighing it down. So let's just go in for a taste. The first,
it's mapley.
Yeah, maple. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. It's something that's heavy.
Yeah.
It's sweet. Yeah.
I like it.
So sometimes even when I'm nosing my whiskey, and I did this yesterday for a whiskey we're reviewing for this week's show on the podcast. For me, I get visions a lot. And so sometimes I'll nose something and it's not like, oh, that smells like mint or something like that. And sometimes it's just, that's bright green.
Okay.
And that's just what pops up in my head as I'm nosing.
It's like a synesthetic experience almost, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of. Yeah, that probably leans more towards the other aspect of my experience.
Sure.
But more clairsentient, but it's like, oh, that's green. Yeah. All right, let's taste it.
All right.
First taste is going to kind of be a wash because it's 110 proof. Your tongue has been drinking water.
Yeah.
So it's like has no base. So let's just kind of get our tongue prepped for a real taste. So let's just kind of prep your palate. Okay, for those at home, this is whiskey, not tequila. Do not shoot whiskey. No.
We're not going to do that.
We too grown. But
we too grown. Okay, so now let's go back in. Now that we've kind of just like neutralized everything. A little bit and,
now the glands are like salivating a little bit. Now we can go in. I love
really delightful.
It is. It's a little too heavy on the back. Blow those alcohol vapors out.
That's really nice.
This is a thick consistency, so we talk about the mouthfeel as well. This is something that you could chew on a little bit. So you get an experience from the nose, the taste buds on your tongue, also the feel coating your palate, and then on the finish, nice little warm Kentucky hug in the back.
Kentucky hug. I haven't heard that term before. That's what
new term.
New term. New term alert. A new term for me. Somebody out there probably is like, "Girl, you you ain't know about the Kentucky Hug. I did not, but I do now.
That's what that is. It's just a little, just a
little
love hug.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good, it has a really nice sweetness to it. It's not overbearing, not at all. It's a little bit dry on the finish.
Yep.
It kind of, those caramel and maple kind of come through. There's a little citrus too in there too. It's kind of bright.
Yep.
Very, very
love your description.
Nice. It's good and it's something that you kind of want to savor. Like you don't want to just toss it back. You want to relax into this a little.
Yeah.
You know.
This is heavy caramel. I get caramel on the beginning,
Absolutely.
and then it does switch over to like that bright candy apple with a little bit of citrus, and then it goes straight back into that molasses caramel. It's like a caramel apple bomb for me. Like, you know, those suckers that you get that have the caramel and the green in the middle. Like, that's what this reminds me of. It's just super like jammy, and it's got great texture. I haven't visited this bottle in a while, so it's good to always do that. But yeah,
it's yummy. It really is. It's kind of elegant. Like it's very. It's like you want to take your time with it. You want to treat it like a lady, you know.
Which is funny because again, you know, when Armand and I picked this bottle, he is someone who really likes the smooth, creamy textures, the sweet floral, fruity notes. And I'm more of that bourbon girl that likes to have that, you know, punch you in the throat, kind of punch you in the face,
it's
traditional.
Like a happy medium.
It is the perfect marriage of my palate and what he loves about whiskey as well. So that's how we got to Double Gold.
Yes.
So yeah. So we need like a spit bucket because I want you to try some of the other whiskeys here, and you shouldn't have to.
She's trying to have me real lushy in midday in Atlanta. But this is a really delightful sip. So you will get, what is this, the third?
We've got a cup off camera.
Is this the third iteration?
So this
coming up next weekend.
So I've kind of lost count because we've had so many different ones.
Okay.
In total, we have mass produced this exact same stage combination into about 15 different barrels.
Okay.
17, because this one we produced on our own, meaning we paid for it. Yeah. And then the second one, we paid for it as well. But then Maker's Mark took it over and has taken over production of getting multiple barrels out across the country. So we've got maybe 3 or 4 that hit the Chicago market, 2 that I think hit Houston. There were some that, like, it kind of gets lost as to how many markets picked up their amount of barrels.
Okay.
So, and I know we've got 2 to 3 barrels that are coming here to Atlanta. One has already hit. We've got 2 that are still ripening through that 9-week process.
Okay.
And they'll be bottled and will continue to be slow released into the market out here. Yeah.
This is delightful.
It is. But I can't wait for you. So I love this because it's got my name on it.
Yeah.
But I have other favorites.
Yes.
And I really want us to kind of taste and get a chance to see some other whiskeys.
Let's do it.
Because they're all...
I'm excited.
They're all created the same, but they're all uniquely different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's rock.
Okay. Let's dump.
All right. Dump. Oh, boy.
You like one more sip?
Put some out for the ancestors.
Oh. I sipped mine for the ancestors.
I put yours out. I gave you a jar. I
wait. He's in the church finger.
You got the church finger. You know. Listen, I'm a Ifa Orisha practitioner and initiate. So we're all about spirits, and we always make sure that we do that. And it's always customary to tap the jar when we open it up. So yes. So
I'm gonna have to start incorporating those into my.
I'm gonna do a little bit here just to kind of get my glass cleaned out a little bit.
And also rinse your palate out too.
For sure.
So I think the next thing that we should try is Uncle Nearest.
Let's do it. Yes.
And you've talked about Uncle Nearest on your show.
I have.
So Do you want me to tell the story? You tell the story.
I want you to tell the story because you're a guest on my show, so I want you to talk as much as you like about Uncle Nearest. This is a very fascinating story, and my family is part of my family is actually from Tennessee.
Really?
Yeah, we're from right outside of Nashville in a very small town called
something.
Yeah, my brain just went blank right now. Gallatin, I'm sorry. Gallatin, Tennessee. So I'm always fascinated by Tennessee whiskey because I'm always thinking about I wonder what my ancestors, did they have anything to do with that? Or, because there was a lot of distilleries around the plantation areas where they stayed. So, it's very possible that, my people could have been harvesting the grain for it or, processing because, they had Black people all up in the distilleries. That's how Uncle Nearest even
became a thing.
Yes. So we can go into talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think what you're saying is right up in line with a piece that I wrote last year, and we are continuing to kind of have these discussions about where is Black history and bourbon history, and we know it's there. Yeah. Like you said, it's the 1800s in Kentucky and Tennessee. We know that slavery was in full effect in those areas. We also know that the people who were running these distilleries, while they were hardworking, and I'm not going to say that whiskey distillers back in those days lived a life of privilege. Just knowing their history and knowing they also were out there working and they were hardworking individuals. So this is not a plantation story per se. Right. But they did have assistance from other hands that were out there. This one in particular for Uncle Nearest goes back to the story of Jack Daniels, who was a young boy who did want to learn how to get into the whiskey business. Jack Daniels has his own amazing story about how you talk about somebody who pulled themselves up from their bootstraps.
He was an orphan too, right?
He was an orphan. He was only 14 or 15 years old when he showed up at Dan Call's farm and said, "Hey, I know you were back there making whiskey and I want you to teach me what you're doing." Yeah. And that's when Dan Call, who was also a preacher in Tennessee, said, "I'll give you my best slave at the time to help teach you the industry." So Uncle Nearest, or Nearest Green, was a slave of Dan Call off the Dan Call farm. And Dan Call was, lo and behold, he was a preacher. He made whiskey. Nearest and his crew were back there making all this whiskey for him. And Nearest was rented to Jack Daniels. So that's an interesting story. And I love that Fawn, the owner and creator of Uncle Nearest Whiskey, always says, Jack never owned Nearest. He was a rented slave, which is like, not only like are you property, but then you're rented out to somebody else. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Right? But he was a rented slave that worked with Jack Daniels and taught him the whiskey making business. When Nearest was emancipated under Dan Call, he then continued to work with Jack Daniels, and they continued to make whiskey together well until he was 60 years old. Nearest's sons actually worked with Jack Daniels as well to make whiskey. They had turned it into a completely different new brand, and it was booming. And so the story is, I'm glad that Fawn has uncovered this story because it's a very important story. It's a story of friendship. It's a story of determination. It's a story of entrepreneurship. It's a story of respect, actually, because again, Jack Daniels wasn't out there whipping slaves. He wasn't beating Nearest Green. He respected his trade, and he worked together with him to learn the whiskey business. And again, his sons, they still have descendants who work at the Jack Daniels plant to this day, just because of the relationship that they had. But that is a beautiful story that finds Black history within whiskey history. The other brands have similar stories. They just haven't revealed them yet. And I hope through some gentle nudging, through the consulting work that we do, through the research and history that not only we're doing, but not only that Fawn is doing, but like Kentucky State University has launched an entire research project to find stories like Mary Screens in the whiskey industry, I hope that there's a way for us to, you keep saying the word elegant, to elegantly tell these stories of how African Americans and Africans back in those days played a major role in the whiskey industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, you know, Black Bourbon Society, that was one of the things that we ran across, is that many of the brands they didn't know how to approach African American consumers because they didn't want to get it wrong. So they didn't do it at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like that same hesitation is there with telling their story. They don't want to offend. They don't want to seem like they had a racist background. They don't want to seem like they participated. And so they just don't want to tell it.
Yeah.
But, you know, us as African Americans, we have to realize history is history. There is nothing we can do about slavery. It happened.
Right.
But we can't get mad and offended when the story comes to light. We have to embrace the story, and we have to find the beauty in whatever story is out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So with that being said, let's have a pour of Uncle Nearest.
Shout out to Uncle Nearest.
This is their 1820, which is a limited release.
Okay.
This is aged 11 years. It comes in at 110 proof. And very rarely do they release these single barrel releases, just because they're hard to come by. And they sell out immediately. They sell out just as fast as our stuff sells, if not even faster. So I want to get you a chance to taste this, because you've never had.
I haven't had this one.
Their single barrel. So this is a Tennessee whiskey. The difference between Tennessee whiskey and a bourbon is a process that has been accredited to Nearest Green and to the African influence on the whiskey making business, and that's a Lincoln County process. And there is research that's coming up saying that the Lincoln County process is basically a charcoal maple filtering that the whiskey goes through after it's distilled and put into the barrel. Before, it's like that in between step. They do that. And so that process dates back to West Africa, where in order to purify, where African countries were purifying their water through charcoal. So if we had African slaves here in the States that were working under their owners who were making this god-awful whiskey, because no whiskey tasted amazing in 1800s. But if they got a hold of that whiskey and they said, you know what, this needs to be filtered and smoothened out, let's run it through some charcoal and see if that takes some of that bite out. And so that process, we're starting to link it now. It hasn't been officially documented yet, but the traces just don't make sense how this process lands in America in the middle of the 1800s out of the blue.
Yes. And I'm a huge fan of traditional West African spirits, palm wines and things like that. Huge fan of the ones with the grandmas in the back. You know what I'm saying? It's always some grandmamas in the back that's making something. And so I'm very intrigued to see how all of that will come together full circle in the research.
It's coming. You know, you and I talked off camera before the show about like there's this whole there's going to be some sort of shift in our collective consciousness where all the things that have not been revealed will all be revealed. There's something that will happen. Truth, love, and light are going to be shifted forward. I think it's coming very soon, including these stories. All of these stories are going to start to bubble up and resurface. You ready to nose this?
We're going to nose this.
Okay, let's dive in.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Completely different nosing profile on this one. Super oaky for me.
Yeah. It's even like a butterscotch.
Butterscotch. I can't figure out if that's pine or cedar, but it's been in the barrel 11 years. So you can imagine that whiskey going back and forth with that wood. It's starting to really soak up that woodsy notes. Yeah,
there's a nice mix of like that sweet butterscotchy, but there's also this earthy.
Yeah.
Earthy.
Yeah, but there's something that's sweet that is coming through there, almost like a malt ball, like a little malty. ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're like, I want to drink.
Yeah, I do. But also the nose is very. It's like I'm smelling something new every time.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of just
right. And so this is why, we spend, Armand and I take our notes differently for the show, but Armand will sit and notes whiskey for 15 minutes. I'm impatient. Like, if it smells good, I want to drink it. Like, I want to taste it right away. So I go back and forth between nosing and tasting.
Yeah.
And I kind of do those in, like, my notes for those, like, in tandem. So let's taste it. Maybe it'll bring out something that you'll look for in the nose as well. Completely different.
Very much different.
There's some red berry in here too.
Absolutely.
I picked it as I was starting to taste. I picked up red fruit.
Even like dried fruits a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like dates or raisins even.
Yep. That's exactly what I got.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like this butterscotch and like a little more caramel is coming through.
Yep.
Yeah, this is really delightful.
Yep. What about the finish? There's no hug on this one. I'm not getting a hug at all. It stops at the top of the throat. It's all in the mouth. There's nothing that hits the esophagus or the chest.
It's like a big burst of flavor and then just pulls right back.
Yep.
There's nothing really lingering. And it actually is it's actually very nice.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'm embarrassed. I haven't had the 1820 before. I had I think 1884.
Yeah, 1884 is their small batch, and then 1856 is what they originally came out on the market with.
Right. Yeah, this is delightful. I'll have to keep that 1820 in mind.
Yeah, they're hard to come by. They they do releases online every once in a while, or maybe a store pick will pop up. But as soon as they hit the airwaves, they're all sold. The last time Uncle Nearest did a 1820 release, of course, all of our members got on and crashed the site.
Oh gosh!
Right, it was pandemonium.
Yeah, this is really delicious. Like you can pour this on a pancake or something. You know what I mean? I almost want to chew it because I want to savor it.
Yep,
a little bit more. That was delightful.
Yeah.
And very different.
Yeah, totally.
Both very delicious and
both 110 proof though.
Okay, that's interesting because the finish is different as far as the Kentucky Hug.
Yeah. Well, I mean that all goes back to the other sources of flavor, right? And again, our Maker's Mark is aged probably 4 to 6. Uncle Nearest is an 11-year-old bottle. Their mash bills are completely different. Maker's Mark is a winter wheat base. I believe Uncle Nearest they haven't released their mash bill, but I believe it's more of the traditional bourbon style, which has at least 51% corn in it. But yes, it's not a rye. It's more corn heavy. So you're pulling different flavors from different grain sources.
Okay. Yeah. So this is why it's really cool to learn the science, so you can understand why certain whiskeys will taste differently or even the same. Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed that.
Right.
I almost want to finish it, but I'm not. I'm not gonna do it. Sorry, Uncle Nearest.
We'll take one more sip and
I'll take one more sip.
Give it to the ancestors.
And we're gonna give some to the ancestors because y'all gonna like this.
I'm gonna do that.
Uncle Nearest, hey, this one Uncle Nearest. We're gonna post them out for Uncle Nearest, right?
Yeah, that's delicious. I haven't revisited any of. It's been a while since I've gone through any of these bottles. Nice. Okay, let's move on.
I could be here
all day,
getting lushy with Miss Samara all day. Delicious, delicious, delicious. Had some great selections today.
All right. I think, are we running out of time? Should we keep going?
One more and then we can.
Well, I'll let you choose because I know that your jam right now is actually not a bourbon.
It's not.
It's a whiskey.
It's a whiskey.
But it is a very fun whiskey. That is the Angels and Bee rye.
Yes, it's so sexy, y'all. I
And
really appreciate
it's in
it.
a rum cask finish.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a huge rum fan too.
So you can choose. Your last pick can either be your favorite or my favorite.
Let's go with your favorite,
Which
because
is
I
this.
have not had the Elijah Craig small batch before.
Okay.
So I'm cool with it, and it's barrel proof.
This is barrel proof.
And what is barrel proof for the listeners?
Barrel proof means they took it straight out of the barrel. They didn't water it down. They didn't lower the proof. Most of the time, they didn't even cut it. Sometimes they'll cut it with they'll run it through a chill filtration, which will kind of mellow out some of that, some of the sediment from the barrel itself. They didn't do any of that. They literally poured it out of the barrel and put it in the bottle.
Let's roll with that one.
You want to do this one?
Yes.
Okay.
We can do this one on camera, and I may take a little bit off camera when we wrap it up.
Okay. So Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I don't know the age off of this one. I'm going to guess it's 10 years. The proof on this one, straight out of the barrel, is 133.4. I live in the uncut space.
Oh, my Lord.
What's that, like the Stranger Things? Like in the, what's the ethereal world that they go to?
Yeah.
What's it called?
I forgot.
I don't know.
I know what you're talking about, but I forgot what it was called.
Whatever the open space, the underworld, the
reality,
ultimate. That's where I live. So that's where this is. This one.
This tasting should be really fun, right?
So that one's this one. So it's 133 proof. Elijah Craig, made by Heaven Hill Distillery. We're going there over the summer, you guys. So if you want to come on this tour with me,
okay.
This is the tour you need to go.
This is the tour.
I've been in talks with them, and they are already rolling out red carpets for us.
I'm here for that.
So let's dive in. Last tasting of the day.
Last
Cheers.
tasting of the day. Cheers for sure.
Any last questions before we dive into this massive tasting?
No.
Okay.
No. Let's just jump in and see how this goes. It looks really beautiful.
Yeah,
really
you
beautiful.
can tell, like, if you're looking at the color, right? The colors are all different on this one. On these three.
This is kind of the deepest, richest, sexiest color here.
Yeah. Whew. Open your nose wide on this one. Open your mouth wide, not your nose. But.
Yeah. This is a very nice, there's a kind of that sweet caramel butterscotchy kind of.
Yep. And it's got some wood, but it's not overpowering.
Not at all.
I felt like the nearest had a little bit more oakiness to it, but you can get a hint of the wood. Yeah.
Ooh. Oh. This is kind of sexy.
This one makes your toe tap.
Yeah.
You know, when iguanas start falling out of the trees, this is the whiskey you want to drink.
That is so funny. They were freaking out in Miami about that.
Well, yes, and that was a debate on our last podcast. Was about the frozen iguanas. We had a full-on debate. But when it's that cold, this is what you need. When you have a cold.
When it's cold outside.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes. This is good. I'll be more specific in a second. I'm kind of enjoying it right now.
This is really jammy. It's thick molasses. Ooh. There are raisin notes on this one as well.
Absolutely.
It's got a good balance of vanilla though.
Yeah, that was the first thing that hit my nose was the vanilla. And I'm a vanilla fanatic.
I cannot smell vanilla.
Really? It was like butterscotch, vanilla, caramel, and a little oakiness on the end.
I know vanilla's there when I can't smell anything. And I'm like, oh, vanilla's probably in here, and that's why I'm completely blind to it. I can pick it up with other notes that go with vanilla. So like creme brulee, that burnt sugar that goes on top of the custard. I know, okay, this is creme brulee. There's definitely vanilla in here. or I can pick up like vanilla wafers or malt balls. And so I can pick up other things that I know have vanilla in it. And that's what gives me my cue that is in there. So if you're listening at home and you don't pick up anything, you could be blind to certain tastes. You could have blind spots on your palate.
Right. Yeah. And you get a nice, long, warm hug.
It's
all in here. Like it's like sitting right. Yeah. And it's just moving. And it's not even aggressive about it. It's very it's very, I hate to use the word, but it's like an elegant heat. It's not the heat that's offensive. This is kind of like...
It just lets you know it's there.
Absolutely. It's like sitting by the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is nice.
Yeah. Warm inside, frozen iguanas outside. That is what this is. This is like, I want to be snuggled up with this in my hand.
Yes.
While the rest of the world freezes.
I'm here for this. Me and the boo. Me and the boo, Elijah Craig.
Yeah. He was also a preacher, by the way.
Listen, man.
I love these drinking preachers.
These drinking preachers, man. They be in the word.
I don't know when y'all got all conservative and buttoned up, but drinking preachers work for me.
You give me a whiskey drinking preacher any day. You can put them in the communion cups. Is that offensive? Sorry, Christians. I'm not trying to offend, but it's really delicious.
Mm-hmm. Jesus drank?
He did.
He turned water
into whiskey. Yes, he did.
Listen.
Don't listen to me.
Listen.
I'm a heathen.
We are not heathens. Mm-mm. We are enlightened.
Enlightened beings. This is a beautiful, nice warm whiskey. She asked me yesterday at your vision brunch, which was wonderful, by the way. Thank you for opening the space and the invitation. It was really a beautiful, affirming event. But we were talking a little bit about whiskey at the end, and she asked me if I had ever had this is small batch?
This is a barrel proof.
Barrel proof. Okay, Elijah Craig barrel proof. And I said, no, I haven't. So I knew it was coming out. I was really excited to taste it. And, you know, I kind of, because I do like Elijah Craig just in general. Mm-hmm. And so I was really excited to taste it because I was like, I didn't know it was going to be good. And it really has met the expectation and even a little bit more. Every time I'm sipping it, I'm tasting a little bit more, and I'm getting a little warm too.
It is. You're getting hot.
Absolutely.
It's like I'm gonna unzip.
Yes, yes. So I really appreciate this. I may have to add this one definitely to the list, and if I'm able to track this down, who knows? If I track it down, I'll get it. Mm-hmm. But yes, definitely we'll have to add these. And this is how I prefer to do my whiskeys. I taste it, and if I have a really good experience with it, then I'll go ahead and get it. But what'll happen is a lot of times people just get so excited. They just want to get this. Ooh, this bottle. Don't get the pretty bottle swindle. Okay? If the bottle is pretty, that don't mean nothing. No. I done tasted a lot of nasty whiskey
in a pretty bottle.
In a gorgeous bottle. Like you almost want to save the bottle and pour some other good stuff in it, kind of deal. But you don't want what was originally in it, you know.
Well, I think this is when knowing the science behind whiskey matters. When you can look at your bottle and you can look at the age statement, you can look at the mash bill, you can look at the proof. When you know where it's sourced from,
right?
Then you can make an educated, a conscious decision on, okay, I want to make my bet on this one.
Right.
But that's what happens in Black Bourbon Society every day. Someone sees a label that is gorgeous, and the price looks decent,
right?
And they post it in the group and they say like, should I get this? Should I try it?
Yeah.
And then people will be like, yes, or they'll be like, absolutely not. Don't do it. You know. So,
where can everybody find Black Bourbon Society in the interwebs? There's a Facebook group.
Yes, we're on Facebook. We have a private group. Please submit to be a part of that group. Mm-hmm. And Black Bourbon Society is growing. accept over 500 members a week. Like it is growing like wildflower.
Yes.
Wow. So definitely join our Facebook group because that's where the daily conversation happens. You can find out information about our mission statement, our membership, shirts, upcoming events. They're all on our website, blackbourbonsociety.com. And then Instagram at Black Bourbon Society is where you can find our social. I'm old. I realize, like, I'm turning 40 this year.
Yeah.
And I still don't know how Instagram works.
I want you to be great and get on Instagram.
Well, I hired somebody to do that.
That's fantastic. Even better. Nothing wrong with that.
We have a social media presence. I just may not know what it is.
That's cool.
We're on Instagram at Black Bourbon Society. And the thing I love about our Instagram page is that we often repost images and captions from our community in Black Bourbon Society on Facebook.
Awesome.
So you do get a chance to see what the members are drinking and what's in their collections.
Awesome. So y'all make sure get on Facebook, get in the Black Bourbon Society group, go to blackbourbonsociety.com, become a member if you so desire, keep track of everything, all of the events. Make sure you go to tttalks.com. I'm on all streaming platforms so that you can follow what's going on in my world. I always got cool stuff going on. Pay attention to who I have on my show. I tell you all the time, Bonded and Bourbon podcast. Make sure that you subscribe to that. Sure, it's probably on all or most of streaming platforms.
It's on all bondedandbourbon.com, at Bonded and Bourbon podcast on Instagram. Okay. We're on IG. I'm on Facebook as well and Twitter at Bonded and Bourbon.
Yes.
One thing that I want to just drop a little nugget, like a little ice cube, and say is that this year we have launched our own nonprofit called Diversity Distilled.
Love it. This is the first time I'm hearing about this.
Yes,
this is awesome.
I didn't get a chance to tell you yesterday, but we have launched a nonprofit organization called Diversity Distilled, and it's more B2B, so it won't be on the consumer side like Black Bourbon Society is, but it's really working with the brands to solve some of their diversity and inclusion issues from all levels. So we're looking at the brands at the leadership and executive level, HR and legal, advertising and marketing, and also from sales and distribution, and really trying to work with the brands and encourage them to include diverse talent, women, people, persons of color, LGBTQI into the corporate structure of these brands.
Absolutely.
And that's where we will make the change that Black Bourbon Society wish they could see.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, more coming.
Make sure you log on to all of these sites so you can keep track of everything, because I'm telling you, she and I move at the speed of light, baby. So y'all need to just catch up, mustard, or you're going to be left behind. Samara, thank you so much for being a guest. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes.
My sister girlfriend.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Y'all make sure you stay tuned. We got so much beautiful things coming with her society, with TiTi Talks. It's a lot of beautiful things coming, so you got to make sure you stay tuned. All right. Peace.